For a lot of people, replaying Terraria comes down to doing the same things over and over again. You pick a class, you use the same couple of items, and not that much changes. And that's a little sad because there's a ton of stuff you can do that's a bit unorthodox, but really fun and powerful. We'll get to the nuclear bomb later. Let's take the Piranha gun. Normally, it's this super rare jungle key weapon that, to be honest, isn't that great, but any projectile in Terraria outside of minions has its damage set when the projectile spawns. That means you can use Shroomite Stealth to get a massive 60% damage boost, shoot the Piranha gun, and then run around and dodge. You lose the stealth, but you keep the damage because the Piranhas are already launched. The Piranha projectile only lasts for 1 minute, but it's going to be extremely powerful for that 1 minute. You can easily get 2,000 or 2,500 single target DPS. It's not the easiest to take advantage of on the moons, and the Empress just ignores the Piranha gun for some reason, but it's awesome against Duke Fishron, and you can reset it mid-fight during his phase transitions. It'll auto-track his third phase too, so you can focus completely on dodging. The Piranha gun, as far as I know, is the only weapon in the game that automatically homes into the correct cultist during his clone attack. They do take a slight damage hit because homing weapons only deal 75% damage to the cultist, but the 60% damage buff from Shroomite more than makes up for that. It's great for Golem, obviously. It's also strong enough to DPS down Betsy. If you put your Eternia crystal on top of a elevator, drop it to the bottom, and latch piranhas onto Betsy, you will easily kill her before the enemies kill the crystal. If you ever get a jungle key, try out using the Piranha gun with Shroomite Stealth. It's very fun to shoot fish. You can do something similar with any long-lasting projectile. Technically, the highest damage you can get off of a Clinger Staff or Nimbus Rod is summoning it with a ton of damage bonuses, then swapping to gear with a bunch of crit bonuses, because the damage is set on projectile spawn, but crit chance is checked constantly. You could also summon those projectiles with a Mage loadout and then swap to a different class entirely, or a high defense setup. The same thing goes for the Phase Blade line of weapons. If you really wanted to, you could summon all of the attacks with their respective damage boost gear, which is just a ridiculous level of optimization, but if you're using a transformation mount, or if you're really just trying to kill things as fast as possible, it might come in handy. In a similar vein, the Crimson Rod is actually ridiculously effective against Deerclops, one of the highest DPS options available if you've got the armor-penetrating necklaces. That's because of how the projectiles work. Every droplet will hit her twice, and she's not that mobile, so they hit pretty consistently. You can stack up damage bonuses with Mage gear, then swap to a higher defense loadout for tanking her attacks, or use whatever primary weapon you want to use. It's pretty good for any boss that you can lead into its projectiles: Skeletron, Eye of Cthulhu, not Queen Bee. It's a lot stronger than it looks, and you can slot it into any build with damage bonuses by swapping gear after summoning it. When you think of it, Terraria builds are a lot like Soup, and I love Soup. Games where you have a lot of options with how you combine equipments, units, or weapons to approach a problem are tons of fun. This game, for instance, has thousands of champions you can choose from, and if you stick around, you can get a special ingredient for your soup. You can cook from your PC, you can do it from your phone, and the graphics are great. It's a game where you go on raids with your legends, also known as Raid Shadow Legends, the sponsor of this video. There's tons of diversity and depth when deciding what characters to take with you, and what's the most important ingredient in any soup? Trees, and this is where my favorite champion arises, the legendary Grand Oak Padraig. He's one of the best champions in the game, able to provide a ton of support buffs to your allies. Your attackers deal more damage, your defenders are better at defending. He is the secret ingredient to making an incredible soup for any dungeon, and the best part is, you can get your hands on him for free. I'll tell you how in a second. Visually, I think he looks awesome too, but that's par for the course. All of the characters in the game have awesome designs. Even the lower rarity characters look pretty cool. So if you haven't started playing it, what are you waiting for? Click my link in the description or scan my QR code to get incredible bonuses available only via my link. You instantly get the legendary Elenaril starter pack and the epic champion Uugo once you hit level 15. But that's not all. You can also pick one promo code out of 5 that you see on screen to unlock another free legendary of your choice. That's 2 legendaries and an epic champion completely free, only available through this link. Again, I recommend that you choose the code WRATH for Padraig, as he's my favorite. Alternatively, if you don't like trees, you can choose any of these legendaries instead, but regardless, with these 3 free champions, you can start putting together some super fun builds for getting through the story and unlocking even more champions to make soup with. So, if you like games with a ton of content to play around with, try out Raid Shadow Legends. Multiclassing is a little weird in Terraria. For the most part, multiclassing requires you to be able to use multiple weapons at the same time to be better than just using one class, and most classes don't let you do that. If you're splitting your damage bonuses between melee and ranged weapons, but you can only use one weapon at a time, both of them are going to be weaker than if you just focused on one. And that's perfectly fine, but you're making your best options weaker in exchange for having more things you can use with damage bonuses. To make multi-classing really good, we need to be able to use multiple classes at the same time. You can kinda do that with the long-lasting projectiles from earlier, but it's a little clunky. But now that whip stacking was removed, Mage and Summoner multi-class pretty well together because both of the classes have downtime, periods of time where you're less effective or out doing anything. Summon tag bonuses last for 3 seconds, and with most whips, there's no benefit to whipping again before those 3 seconds are up. And magic weapons require mana, which needs to regenerate over time. What you can do is drink a mana regeneration potion, use your mana to attack, and then while regenerating swap to a whip because mana regenerates normally if you're attacking with a non-magic weapon. This works best with a hybrid armor set like Forbidden Armor, although you can do it with just free minion slots and accessories. Alternatively, you can do it as a more summoner-focused strategy with Summoner Armor and swap to magic weapons in the periods between the 3 seconds to reset the whip tag bonus. It shores up the weaknesses of both classes. Summoners have no reason to keep whipping enemies once the tag bonus is applied, and mages have nothing to do when regenerating their mana. It's basically just whip stacking with magic weapons instead of whips. It's mage stacking. You can either see it as something to do when your mana is regenerating, or as something to do when you're just starving for micro gameplay as a summoner. When you're doing this, you'll want to use whips that have bonuses that do last for 3 seconds. A few of them, namely the Firecracker and Star Crash, get consumed whenever a minion hits the enemy and needs to be reapplied, so you'll want to whip constantly with those weapons, and they're not good to swap off of. It's not that easy to do this, it takes some mental effort, but it is better than either one individually. It's particularly strong in pre-hard mode because there isn't much gear to equip for either class, and the tag damage bonuses are a massive contribution to summoner damage at this point. Your Snapthorn hits are not doing anywhere near as much damage as, say, a Thunder Zapper or Demon Scythe, and it only needs to hit once every 3 seconds to give the tag bonus. Deerclops, Skeletron, Queen Bee, it's great for them. It stays good up until mid-hard mode. Once you get past Plantera, summoner damage starts to come more from raw minion damage, summon slots, and outright whip damage than the tag damage bonuses. It's still not bad to do until you get to like the pillar weapons, but it's not as strong as earlier in the game. You can always just have minions summoned and use magic weapons, but hybrid mage stacking and swapping to whips is most effective when tag bonuses are the most effective, and those get weaker over time. It's mostly just something fun to do if you miss whip stacking or if you get bored regenerating mana. Speaking of Summoner, the Old One's Army lets you summon as many sentries as you have Etherean mana during it, but those sentries go away the moment the event ends. And it's possible to make the event last for a very long time, which can let you use all of the sentries you get for the event on bosses. Now, the game does a lot to make that difficult for you. You can drop the crystal to the bottom of the world, but enemies will phase through the ground. It'll get you a minute or two, but not much more. You can get rid of the ground below the enemies, but they'll start to fly. Hoiks are what work well. I've got a whole guide on them, but hoiks are hammered tiles that cause entities inside of them to get pushed in a specific direction. With an invalid platform, you can stall any ground-based enemy indefinitely. You can make those by hammering blocks like this, pay attention to the hypotenuse, and block swapping platforms into them. Make sure they're not too close to the crystal or ranged enemies will be able to attack it. Unfortunately, flying enemies start to show up quickly, and you can't stall those like this. Using only invalid platforms, you can get 7 free sentries in Tier 1, 4 in Tier 2, and 2 in Tier 3. So a lot of free sentries early on, not that many later. You can really mess up pre-hard mode bosses or early hard mode events like this, blood moons, goblins, pirates, but it falls off after killing a mech. What you can do for the later tiers instead is Hoik the Crystal. It's an NPC, it has collision, and you can send it to the other side of the world. It takes a lot of time to set up, but you can build up a lot more sentries like this because you can do it after the flying enemies start showing up. In Tier 2, you can do it literally at the end of the event after Ogre has spawned in and you're at 99% progress. In Tier 3, you'll want to do it at Wave 6 before Betsy is spawned in. Put actuators beneath the crystal to send it into a Hoik and then just ship it across the world. You might have some trouble swapping between vertical and horizontal movement. Space the Hoik teeth 2 apart with a floor horizontally and 3 apart vertically with connections like this. This is also a decent strat if you're on a high difficulty and just need more time to kill Betsy. cutscene, make sure that it ends in the same horizontal position that it started in, otherwise enemies will get to it more easily, because you're going to want to put an invalid platform to slow down the ground enemies. You can also drop 1 or 2 sentries or a clinger staff to deal with the flying enemies, just so that 1 or 2 getting there doesn't kill the entire crystal. This will buy you a lot of time, 5 to 10 minutes if you go to the other side of a large world, but it doesn't work forever. You could make it work basically forever if you then sent the crystal to the other side of the world once enemies have traveled to the crystal, but that's an absurd amount of setup. Realistically, the best thing you can do here is airdrop like 17 sentries on top of the mechs, Plantera, Golem, etc. And that's a ridiculous amount of sentries. You can drop a giant stack of explosive death or just spam a ton of Ballista or Flame Burst. I'm partial to explosive traps myself. Ballista tend to struggle on hitting most bosses. If you've got 17 sentries, you don't need 5 minutes to kill a boss. They're gonna die real quickly. You don't have to move the crystal that far away. And if you really just want to nuke something out of existence, you can store Ethereal mana in a chest and save it for a later Old One's army, then set up the stall on the first waves when only fighter enemies are present. That gives you unlimited time and as many sentries as you feel like stockpiling. Genuinely, you could just drop like 50 explosive traps on whatever boss you want to fight and they will get vaporized. You could literally drop 1,000 explosive traps and instantly delete anything that touches it. Mechs, Plantera, Fishron, Empress, Cultist, just listen to the audio. Ranger gets mini nukes. Summoner gets mega nukes. You need to make sure that you never open the chest outside of the Old One's army because Ethereal mana is a bit shy and instantly disappears if you look at it outside of the event. It can exist in the chest, you just can't look at it. I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets patched at some point. Sentries in general can be really strong if you know how to play into them. The Squire set and Valhalla Knight set both cause the Ballista panic buff when you take damage, which sends your Ballista into Berserk mode. They shoot like 3 times faster, which is literally triple damage from them. You can trigger Ballista panic off of any damage, even just a spike or spike block. Ballista can basically solo the Old One's army with it, they'll annihilate events, and just overall output huge amounts of damage. Remember, sentries benefit from whips, and you can do this in addition to having regular minions. Ballista struggle a bit with flying enemies and fast moving enemies, so this won't work on everything, but it's very strong when it does work, and the high defense from the armor sets allows you to intentionally get hit and not take that much damage if you support it with defensive accessories and potions. People think of Summoner as a squishy glass cannon, but Ballista summoners get tons of damage and tons of defense. If you do this in addition to the previous sentry build-up strategy, you'll be able to just blow things up with your mind. This is what true power feels like. Nobody likes random enemies like wyverns spawning during boss fights, and most bosses have been changed to make that impossible. The way it works is that if a certain number of enemies are spawned in, additional enemies can't spawn, and most bosses take up enough spawn slots to reach that cap. Not all of them, though. The twins, for instance, reach the local spawn cap when both are alive, but once one of them dies, additional enemies can spawn. And there's a very simple solution to stop them. Just spawn the Eye of Cthulhu. The Eye is going to do no damage to you, and if the Eye and the boss are both alive, nothing else is going to spawn. And hey, if you kill the Eye, you can just summon it again. Wyverns specifically cannot spawn if an NPC is nearby unless it's a blood moon or solar eclipse, so you can build a house above your arena or use king or queen statues to teleport an NPC nearby. You can also leverage the spawn rate reductions from NPCs for a lot of stuff. Mining out a Plantera arena, for instance, is much easier if you've got a town next to where you're digging. There's a lot of other stuff I tried out and honestly just wasn't that impressed with. You can cram a bunch of dummies and enemies together to get HP off the life drain, but it's a lot of hassle and not that much payoff. You can throw down a lightning aura trap on top of a target dummy to trigger holy protection the moment it comes off cooldown, which is nice, but after target dummies got changed to despawn when you're far away, it isn't as useful as it used to be. I'm sure there's some stuff I missed, so if you can think of any weird but really effective strats, leave them in a comment. I'd love to read through them. Don't forget to use my Raid Shadow Legends link to get 3 awesome champions for free.